This is the Amos Madra Show.
Hello and welcome. My guest today is Shaka Hislop, who is a retired professional goalkeeper. His former clubs include Newcastle, West Ham, and FC Dallas, and he appeared at the 2006 World Cup for Trinidad and Tobago. Shaka Hislop is also the honorary president of Show Racism, the Red Card. Shaka, very warm welcome to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. I can see in the background Newcastle still in the blood.
Yes, sir. It is. It's I've got one of those for all my previous clubs, but this has been my home office over the pandemic when we're doing so much stuff online, and the Newcastle is always present.
So the Toon Army definitely has a place in your heart, then.
It certainly does, for a number of reasons. You know, it was Newcastle who gave me my opportunity to play in the Premier League, realize a boyhood dream of my own, and where I found so much success, made so many friends. So it's still a place I look back on fondly. My eldest daughter was also born up in the northeast, so it's where I became a father for the first time. So it ticks a number of boxes.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your career and how you got started and how you got into the Premier League and the goalkeeper that you are. That we all remember.
I'm not sure we have enough time for all of that, but I'll give you the short version. So I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago, and to be honest, coming through high school, there was never a professional league in Trinidad and Tobago. There was no major league soccer in the US, and most players coming out of the islands just kind of pursued college scholarships in the US. So you play for a university, they'd pay your tuition, you'd get a degree and find a professional job at the end of it. And that was my path. That was my intended path. Coming to the end of my time at Howard University, where I went to school, I wanted to give professional football a shot. I've been contacted by an agent about doing that. And through playing indoor for a team in Baltimore, and being spotted by a Reading scout, Reading offered me an opportunity. They brought me up to Reading on trial in June or July of 1992. Eventually offered me a professional contract. And then the rest, as they say, is history.
Now, I mean, I remember definitely, the days of, you at Newcastle and also, West Ham and, all the different things you did, even the World Cup, that was one heck of a World Cup in Germany, wasn't it? 2006. But, even up to today, there are not many black goalkeepers. I mean, what was that like for you?
Well, at the time, I don't think, when you're in it, you don't recognize it, and maybe you aren't totally aware of the history, or the lack of, as the case may be, around black goalkeepers. Playing at the same time as me was David James. Before us, I can only think of Alex Williams at Manchester City as black goalkeepers who played at the highest level of English football. But when you're there, the only thing I'm thinking about is the next game, or the fact that I'm here and recognizing a boyhood dream, as you put it. And it's only kind of after the fact that as I look back on it, on my career, on the times, and there not being many black goalkeepers to follow, or the few that did, how much they stood out. Even after me, and you see the likes of Randolph at West Ham and a couple others who followed on, and you recognize how much they stand out, how much you notice, and it's only then I think you kind of realize, or certainly I realized the position that I was in, and how much David and I probably stood out in our own time.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think with that kind of pressure as well, in fact, there's more pressure on you than the outfield players, because then it's so easy just to label and, shout abuse at you. That's something that you went through quite a lot. Can you tell us about, your experience of racism in football?
Well, the thing is, in all honesty, you know, when you're a player, and I really don't mean this as a cop-out, you don't notice what's being said, and you tune out as much as you're aware of the noise, and you feed off the noise and the energy and the emotion. You aren't aware of individual things being said. So I wasn't aware of it on the field per se, but at the same time, my wife used to come to a lot of the games, and she would hear a lot of the racist abuse, and that was always off-putting for me because, I mean, I'm standing in the middle of the field, whatever is going on or being said to or about me. There's that layer of, you know, security. There's that layer of separation. But my wife was there, and it was always a concern of mine when she would come to games. But how do I say to my wife, no, don't come to watch me play football? You know, we were together in our college days, so you know, she experienced so much of those stepping stones to me, realizing that dream that I keep talking about, and her sharing in that. And then, you know, now I'm playing. When she's there, I'm worried about what she may be exposed to. If I make a mistake, how is that going to affect the people around her? Do they recognize her? Do they turn on her? So you're fighting with a lot of emotions on that level, you know. So that was also that was tougher for me to deal with than anything anybody may or may not have said in my close proximity.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't have been easy for your wife to have to deal with that, and you know, props to you for putting that to one side and focusing on the game itself. And you know, I suppose this is what you have to do as a professional. You know, even up to today, there's a lot of professionals that are still facing issues and, you know, racist abuse. Even though it's after the game these days on social media.
Yeah.
Now, you're active with Show Racism, the Red Card. Why did you get involved with that organization?
Well, it started back in the Newcastle days. I was contacted by the current CEO, Jed Grabby, about work that he was doing with a group called Youth Against Racism in Europe, in the Northeast, in Newcastle specifically. And through an experience I had of my own, where I was racially abused, as it happened, it was just outside St. James's Park, not on a game day. I just happened to be there, and just kind of talking about that experience with Jed, and recognizing how. So the story is, I was outside St. James's Park filling up a car with petrol, and a group of youths come walking down the hill. It was at night. It was, you know, I'm going to guess around 9 o'clock at night one evening. And they started shouting racist abuse at me. And then as I got closer, one of them recognized who I was, and they started chanting my name and wanted to come over for autographs. So as I said, at the same time, around then I was contacted by Jed about work that he was doing in the Northeast, and told him about that experience. And, you know, we felt that it spoke to, you know, the duality of who I was, certainly at the time in the Northeast. And as I put it, from 50 yards away, I was a black man worthy of the most vile racist abuse. From 50 feet away, they wanted my autographs and were chanting my name. And that kind of speaks to my position as a footballer in the Northeast, and how I could speak to so many of the issues around the black community and their experiences in the Northeast. And I'm saying the Northeast here because when we started, our intention was, you know, this is where we called home. You know, we applied our trade for Newcastle United. I felt that as a footballer, we have a responsibility to our communities. And it started with us going to schools and talking to kids. And that was how we were trying to give back to our community. On that first school visit, I was joined by John Beresford. And it just went from there, because I just feel that football as a vehicle has a real power, certainly within the Northeast in particular, and within British society and communities. And we were able to talk about our own experiences of people from all four corners of the earth, sharing the same dressing room and playing for the same team, celebrating together and lifting each other up when things don't go well. And that message resonated. And we were able to form some very good partnerships early on. And now here we are some 25 years later still talking about the campaign, the work that it's doing all over the United Kingdom, and the strides that we've been able to be a part of. But in those early days, it was just about a few of us feeling that we had a responsibility to give back and to better the community that we called home.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I think that's the beauty of sport. It's that brotherhood of or sisterhood, or that camaraderie between people who from different parts of the world, but in that locker room you are one, and that's what makes sports a beautiful thing. And it's great that you wanted to share that out with the community, which is certainly the case in Newcastle, one of the very few cities that has one football club, so you can imagine the passion and the love for that club. And we just hope, I suppose, that that same enthusiasm could be across the country. How do you reckon things have gone from your perspective? How are things with the organisation, Show Races and the Red Card?
Well, with the organisation, things have progressed incredibly well over the course of the 25 years to where we are now, to being a presence across the United Kingdom. We recently opened our fourth office in Manchester, so now we do have genuine footholds all over the country, and continue to work with schools from all four corners of Great Britain. And back in November, I think it was, we'd crossed 825,000 kids who'd had at least a day's worth of work with our workers, a day's worth of anti-racism work with our workers and education workers. So to put that in perspective, for me, coming from Trinidad and Tobago, I come from a country of 1.3 million people, and now here we are talking about a campaign that through our workshops has affected 825,000 kids. So the scale for me is almost it's unbelievable for the scale that we've been at over the last 12 months, where we've had to deal with so much that 2020 has put on our plates. It's given us real reason to take pause because of the pandemic and because of the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, where I feel because of that pause, because of the pandemic, so many people have recognized so many of the complaints of the Black communities. They've seen it play out in real time in front of their own eyes, and where as much as 2020 has negatively affected us, we have to focus on how we can take that negative kind of exposure and those experiences and turn them into powerful and positive lessons for the long term, and that's what we've been focused on, and we've done an incredible job with it. I will also take this moment right now to pay tribute to our workers, our staff, our volunteers, who continue to do the most incredible work in at times the most testing of circumstances up and down the United Kingdom, in arming the next generation with an understanding and an empathy around our shared humanity, regardless of who we are, regardless of our ethnicities, our sex, how we
Yeah,
worship, how we love. And
definitely.
that for me, those people are incredible to see what they're doing day in and day out.
Definitely, yeah. You know, you're a very positive person, and I suppose again, you know, that perhaps relates to your sporting career. Where does that positivity come from?
I've always been a glass half full kind of guy, you know, and that's just my own outlook. And I often say that I can't tell my story without telling my father's story. My father was a part of the Windrush generation, coming to England in the 60s. He was a school teacher, and he himself was wrongfully arrested by two police officers. Him and a friend were walking home, arrested and charged with attempted auto theft. They got off. They sued the police, got was awarded a record settlement of £8,000. And with my father's share of the 4,000, father's share of £4,000, one of the things he did was enroll in law school. And the lesson to that was, when you aren't satisfied with a system, you have to work to change it. And it may mean putting yourself in it fully in an effort to address those systemic injustices. And that's exactly what I did. Exactly what my dad did, and those are the lessons I took in the most difficult of circumstances and times. My father was able to do that. So for me, it was, you know, it was just following from his example, and so, you know, here we are, here I am.
You know, it's very inspirational. You know, I think it's great when you hear about stories from the Windrush generation with the hardship that they went through. You know, despite that, but to take something good out of that bad situation, you know, getting the qualification, being able to at least be in a position where, you know, your father understood the law and he could support
Mm-hmm.
other members of the community. But as well as that, he was able to transfer those skills onto his son. And ultimately, that led to a very successful career. Not many
Mm-hmm.
people make it into the professional football career. You know, I was speaking to somebody from Man City the other day, and they were telling me 0.006 or something like
Yeah.
that. You know, what sort of dedication does it take, and, you know, commitment for you to get, for anybody to get to that professional status?
Right. It does take quite it does take real determination and focus around what you're doing and your own aspirations. Um, you know, it does take a fair slice of luck as well. And I know I've good fortune has smiled on me throughout. And so, you know, while you know, I guess it took quite an effort on my part. I also think it took an effort on a lot of people just to kind of recognize um, whatever it is they saw in me and take a chance on me when, you know, in sport and like so much else, these things come with personal risks to themselves as well. So I'm grateful to those who gave me the chance. I'm just happy that I put myself in a position where I could make the most of those breaks. But I look back on it with a sense of satisfaction, a sense of pride, but equally knowing full well that a lot of people have to share that credit.
What was going through your mind when you were signing that contract with Newcastle?
With Newcastle was that was unbelievable. It really was, and I remember, you know, I'd been there was some links with Premier League clubs for some time. My agent was telling me that Newcastle were interested, and he was speaking to them. And I'll keep in mind, this is 1992, so this is, or 1995, excuse me. So this was pre-cell phone days, etc. I remember being at home at Reading one day and getting a call from somebody saying they were Kevin Keegan, which I thought it had to be one of my mates just playing a joke. It really was the old cliche, and I just hung up. And he called back, and even then I was still doubting. and just kind of talking to me about how he saw me fitting in, the opportunity I'd get, because at the time, Pavel Sunacek was going to be suspended for the first 2 games of the season. So just talking through little particulars like that. And it's only when he hung up and I was talking to my girlfriend, she's now my wife, about that phone call, that you recognize how surreal that is. You know, I grew up watching Kevin Keegan play. I grew up idolizing Kevin Keegan. And now I'm on the phone with him and about to join his team. I was getting ready to do incredible things in football. And it was, I described so much of my career as a fairy tale. And these are the reasons why. You know, some things, as much as a kid, you dream about and you see it going to happen, and then when it does, it just doesn't feel real. And that's kind of how I remember them, and that's how I want to keep them.
That's it, isn't it? It's treasuring those memories. You know, it's an incredible journey that you've been on. You know, one that many would wish to have lived themselves. And you know, you're so humble in how you know, you express your feelings about it. But yeah, an incredible journey. Now, with your analysis hat on, how would you say the game has changed? How things since your playing days?
Well, I mean, the game's gotten a lot quicker. Nobody, you know, I think as you get to understand fitness and physicality and just the science around it, you know, just in terms of pure athleticism, the game's progressed, and you can see that just in the way the game is played. You can see that in the money that's involved in the game, as they get to understand the value of the sport and its connection with a global fan base and what it means as a business. You've also seen, especially over recent months, how players have embraced the platforms that they've earned in pushing for social change in a way and in a voice that I don't think many of us were afforded, you know, 25 or 30 years ago. But you know, I feel that so much of the game has moved forward in a way that, you know, again, it's tough to anticipate and even more difficult to try to predict what's to come tomorrow. So I'm just happy to be still involved. Happy to have a front row seat to it all, and see where this game can take us.
Definitely. It's like basketball these days, you know, it's back and forth, isn't it? Fast
That's right.
breaks and all sorts. And just the talent, the skills, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's incredible. Shaka, just want to say a huge thank you to you. It's been an absolute joy just to sit down, hear your story and your passion, and so positive and hopeful for the future. And I think with more people like you know, it just puts faith in humanity. And I just want to say thank you. I want to honor you for who you are, and you know, continue doing what you're doing. You're impacting people's lives, changing people's lives in a very positive way. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really touched by those words. It means a lot. It really does. Thank you very much.